Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. I am Karan from Consensus India. I have with me my colleague Mayank here. So, are you guys working in India, or are you interested in the Indian space for blockchain? Yeah, few of you. So, what we are going to present today is about how India is looking at blockchain and what are the different initiatives that are underway in India, the different projects in public and private sector. So, most of the developed countries, they were ready to ride the first wave of digitalization back like 2 decades back. India is right now in that phase, in that stage, where it's ready to directly adopt the Web3 wave. We come across many private and public enterprises who are now digitalizing their infrastructure, digitalizing their processes, and they are directly ready to move to blockchain for that. So, India is a very exciting market. It presents a unique opportunity for blockchain. So, after the first revolution of affordable smartphones, now there are many payment and identity solutions that are in India. So, for example, different payment wallet, payment gateways that are like UPI that are in India right now, and also with the implementation of Aadhaar in the country, we are looking at a payment revolution that is happening in the country, and most of the public and private enterprises are looking at digitalizing their infrastructure, and blockchain is at everyone's radar currently. So, what we see is that blockchain is a growing market. It's growing at a rate of about 58% every year, and we are looking at it growing like that for next 5 to 6 years. And there are many government initiatives like the Smart City initiative, which is happening in India, which is a $34 billion opportunity, where they are looking for many blockchain solutions as well. So, apart from public and private enterprises, there are about more than 120 activist startups in India who are working in the smart contract and crypto space. And they actually combined raised more than 5 million last year itself in funding. And when we talk about Ethereum, when we talk about the Ethereum ecosystem, Ethereum is one of the most popular cryptocurrencies in India. It's the biggest search technology as well as currency in India. More than 34% of all Google searches on blockchain and crypto are about Ethereum. And also, the blockchain skill is highly in demand in the market. The blockchain, India is actually the second biggest country when it comes to the number of developers in blockchain. There are about 20,000 people who claim to have blockchain skills, and most of them are actually proficient in Solidity and Ethereum for development. And it's growing at a good rate with now decentralized projects and distributed teams. It's becoming even more easier to hire and work with teams in India, and it's a high-paying job for the individuals as well. So there are multiple use cases that the private, public, and consortium industries, enterprises are looking at, beginning from Bollywood, which is looking at music streaming and ownership of records for artists, as well as businesses looking for trusted network, governments looking for e-governance, voting, storage of records on blockchain in India. And apart from that, there are some big industries like healthcare, education, agriculture, and finance, which are about to be disrupted by blockchain. So, when we talk about blockchain, the public enterprises are looking at it from 4 main dimensions. One for jobs, capital management, then there is jobs, capital management, then they are looking at it as a strategic advantage to compete in the global market for blockchain, and also for helping with the skills and the human resources available in the country. So, one of the biggest use cases that we see, and Consensus India has been actively working on it, and many state governments in India like Telangana, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, even the central government is exploring blockchain for land registry, land titles, because there is a lot of potential to make that process more transparent. So land records is one of the biggest use cases that we see for public enterprises in India. Then storage of education records for having authentic certification available on blockchain is another big use case. Many states are looking at it. And also healthcare records, creating an ecosystem for storing healthcare records, which is currently missing in the country, is another sector to be disrupted by blockchain. Agriculture, which is one of the biggest industries in India, blockchain can ensure more transparency in the entire value chain of agriculture, and all the stakeholders can get a fair share with blockchain implementation. And then there are enterprise records, licenses, IP management, which can be stored on blockchain, and many governments are exploring that as well. And also for improving their own internal processes for voting, we have got a lot of interest in e-governance on blockchain. Then apart from the public enterprises, there are big consortiums that are forming in India which are utilizing blockchain. For example, there's 19 big insurance companies in India have come together to explore implementation of blockchain. 37 banks, which is led by State Bank of India, they have created a consortium called BankChain, and they are looking at blockchain solutions. The Indian Trade Connect Consortium, which is of 14 members, they have actually worked on a loan facilitation through blockchain, which was implemented by Infosys. And Reserve Bank of India actually has tested a use case for trade finance on blockchain. So there are many industry consortium-led projects that are underway in the country. And apart from that, at Consensus in India, we have seen a lot of interest in the telecom sector. Many of the big telecom companies, service provider, infrastructure provider have reached out to us for exploring use cases in asset tracking, in fraud prevention, in IoT implementation of blockchain. And apart from that, as I was mentioning before, some of the big Bollywood powerhouses as well as music streaming apps are looking at blockchain for ownership of rights as well as distribution and consumption of music. We are gaining a lot of interest there as well. So yeah, even though blockchain is on everyone's radar, everyone is looking at the technology to utilize for making processes more efficient, the crypto regulations India yet to embrace the technology fully. And but there's exciting work happening. A lot of crypto community are pushing for favorable regulation, and the Supreme Court of India actually gave a timeline of 4 weeks. This was like 2 weeks back to the government of India to come up with intelligent policy framework for crypto. And India is also looking at other developed economies like Switzerland and Japan to come up with the best policies for crypto. And we see that there are more than 1 billion people who are yet to adopt cryptocurrencies in India. So what I'd like to talk about is how Consensus India is looking at it, and what our vision, what are the different use cases that we are working with. I'll let my colleague Mayank speak a bit more about what our initiatives are in the country.
Thanks for that, Karan. Let me talk to you about what specifically we have been doing in the last 1 year. What we have seen that an obvious thrust from the Prime Minister office in terms of adopting this technology, embracing it. So the advisors for Prime Minister, which is called the Niti Aayog for India, they reached out to us. We became the technology advisor for them, and we have taken the journey of implementing land titling in India. That was one of the first successful implementations which is on the way, and most probably very soon we'll be releasing a public statement for the same. But it's something which has shown that the government has appetite in terms of embracing these newer technologies. And also apart from the land titling project which is underway in one of the areas in the northern part of country, but what we have seen is that many of the states, at least 5 to 6 states, have already reached out or are in a different stages of the implementation for the land titling projects across India. Apart from land titling, last year when we started the journey, we started back in May, and when we launched our office, and we had an education program, which was the first project which we completed at that time. And it's something which we have very focused on in terms of, because we know and understand that India has a huge tech population which is actively involved working with various service integrators based on India. but blockchain being one of the fastest growing technologies, we felt the need that we have being in one of the forefront of the blockchain advisors globally. We have to enable the Indian population in terms of embracing the whole ecosystem. So we came up with the fact that we have to start these annual education programs. We are trying to do it half yearly, annually, as the appetite of the students over there. And it has seemed to be like a very successful initiative in itself, where we have started, in terms of just shortlisting, we have to like shortlist more than 2,000 to 3,000 students to get a batch of 40, 50 students. So that was something which has been for quite some while. And there are two other things which we have been actively working on. One was for the healthcare, where we have started developing in-house product for both the insurance claim processing, easing the whole process, and as well as for the electronic health records. Apart from that, we have been doing consulting and advisory both for the government of India, for port trust authorities across India, and also for the private players, like the tech product companies out of India who have reached out to us, both in the supply chain, finance sectors, trade finance examples. So that's in a nutshell what we have been doing in the last 1 year. And what we have intended out of this presentation, that if any one of you guys are looking forward in terms of any collaboration for the Indian market, probably we can help us in enabling those interactions over there. Thanks for listening and thanks for coming. Are there any questions? Yeah, sure.
Hey guys, thanks for a really great talk. I kind of had a question really about how the central government looks at blockchain. So first, what I kind of remember, and I could be wrong, is that over the summer, the central government blocked or banned crypto trading. And I also noticed in your talk, you mostly talked about individual Indian states, not really so much what is the central government's involvement in blockchain. And the second thing I kind of wanted to tie that into was so as you guys know, there's a national elections coming up in May. And the impression I've gotten over the past 20, 30 years is that, in the case that the NDA coalition loses, right, and you get I assume something else, there does seem to appear, at least to me, there's a lot of loss of progress. New government comes in, and they're just we're going to do what we want to do, irrespective of what the previous people were doing, or, and then they fight over, why'd you guys drop this, or, oh, you guys were corrupt here, blah, 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 right? So it's kind of wondering, what's your guys' perspective on how you see, do you guys have any concerns about, the central government in terms of blockchain, in terms of crypto, in terms of whether or not, for example, in the US, they might kind of get confused between, the concept of cryptocurrencies versus the concept of blockchain, right?
Okay. First, I would like to clarify. It's true that last year government has banned the entire crypto space over there, but with the recent directive from Supreme Court of India, we feel that it's not very strongly linked just with the government as of now, because when we were working with the Prime Minister's office, it's definitely the central government which is involved. And they are the advocates who are actually hand-holding all these different states in terms of enabling them to understand what's technology, in terms of what's the power of this technology and how it can be best utilized for an Indian subcontinent kind of a geo. So it's not that it is very much centric to states, but what is happening is that because all these developments are happening more in the pilot stages or in different smaller municipalities, but there are no nationwide adoption, which might make it look like that, that there seems to be some disconnect between the states and central. But in actuality, the things are driven from the center and states are adopting it in a sequential manner. And in terms of, in case there is a government change, we feel that particularly if there is government change, already Supreme Court is involved. We have seen a lot of technology lobbyists forming these focus groups. There are a lot of people who are trying to regulate the whole ecosystem. So I don't think they'll be able to ignore so many people who are actually got involved in all this. And there are actually clear positive outcomes of adopting it. So we feel that like many other countries which have faced that journey of first they ignore you, then they ban you, and then they regulate you. So most probably we are heading to the third step of getting regulated. I hope that answers. Yeah, please.
Hey, thank you, Mayank and Karan, for a good overview about Indian ecosystem. I have one question. Like, from what I understood from your presentation is, it's more of a top-down approach that's happening right now, where you're looking from the government perspective and also implementing projects. I'm interested to know also about how the bottom-up approach is, like from the community, from the entrepreneurs out there in India. Is there something exciting happening, or are they waiting for the regulation to actually kick in before they can do something?
I think the one fact which Karan has covered in the presentation that out of the recent researches which happened, and if you see that they have ranked Indian developer community as the second largest community out there in the blockchain space. That in itself tells the fact that there's a huge community traction which is already happening, not only just with these numbers, but the number of courses out there, number of people who are taking these trainings, in itself it's a testament that there is a lot of community traction happening. I'm based out of Bangalore, and I haven't seen a week which is like there is no meetup or no groups which are getting together to come up or discuss these new advances which are happening in this space. So bottom up is more exciting compared to top down, but top down is something which is actually impacting the whole ecosystem in terms of how it regulates itself. So that's why probably we didn't cover so much from the bottom approach, but bottom up is rosier picture compared to top down as of now. Thank you. Okay. Thank you.